This is the CMMG Resolute. It is an AR-15 style rifle which joins a new era of guns that are built for shooters who have come to expect a higher grade of quality in their hardware. Gone are the days of cheap plastic furniture and floppy triggers. You've all watched Honest Outlaw. If that guy gives a gun a bad review, it's pretty much doomed. Nowadays, everywhere you look, the internet is exploding with companies that are racing to build better guns for a more informed audience. Competition drives innovation, innovation improves quality, and quality is a big win for the customer. So, is the CMMG Resolute right for you? Let's find out. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Today we have a very special treat. This is the CMMG Resolute. It is a full-size pistol caliber carbine chambered in 9mm. Now, the reason this rifle might look a little bit familiar to you is because it does have a very famous younger brother called the CMMG Banshee. But make no mistake, the Resolute is every bit as awesome. And the best part about this particular variant, it takes Glock magazines. So if you have a bunch of these at home, then you are already halfway to owning a Resolute. All right, we got a lot of stuff to cover, so let's get started. First off, what is the CMMG Resolute? Well, fundamentally, this is a full-sized AR-15 rifle with a 16-inch barrel. The Resolute comes from a very large family of rifles, which are chambered in all different calibers, ranging from 5.56 to 300 Blackout to 7.62 to 45 ACP to 40 Smith & Wesson, and yes, the ever-popular 9mm. CMMG has done a very thorough job of producing virtually every option you could ever want. They even come in different colors. All right, so let's take a minute to go over some of the basic features of the rifle. We'll start here in the back. CMMG has engineered a cool-looking, low-profile buttstock. It's very comfortable, it's easy to use. They call it the zipper stock because it indexes its way out back, and it's pretty easy to kind of change around and get the right fit. Now, one thing they did not add is a QD point back here. There is no way to attach a sling to the stock of this rifle. It absolutely baffles me as to why they would do that. It makes no sense whatsoever. You can, however, attach whatever you want down onto these connection points over here underneath the buffer tube, but there's no way to get your sling on the stock. So if you like to have your sling up high, it's not gonna be an option for you. Why they did that, I have no idea. Moving up to the middle, you have basic AR-15 controls. These are fairly standard. The safety catch occurs on both sides of the gun. I think that's why they call it ambidextrous, even though it really is not an ambidextrous gun. It is not set up for left-handed shooters, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. Anyway, moving up to the front, the engineers at CMMG elected not to put a full-length Picatinny rail across the top of the barrel. And at first I thought, why would they do that? That's really unusual. Normally that's pretty standard on most guns, but after you use this thing for a couple of times, you start to realize how incredibly comfortable it is not having that giant zipper of aluminum going across the top of your gun. Plus, the M-LOK gives you plenty of places to connect whatever crap you want onto your rifle. There's no end to what you can add to this gun. I tend to be a little bit of a minimalist. I don't like a bunch of stuff on my guns, but that's just me. Either way, it's a very, very soft shooting gun. I find that I really look forward to going out and taking this thing out on the range. And of course, the Glock magazines, they just make your life so much easier. Now, the rifle we are talking about in this episode is the 9mm variant, which accepts the tried and trusted Glock magazines. In fact, the Glock mag has pretty much become a hallmark of pistol caliber carbines here in the 21st century. Lots of companies are building guns which accept these slender slivers of bullet-toting plastic. They're inexpensive, easy to get, and they are very reliable. So as we take a closer look at our Resolute, we can see that it features an all-aluminum construction. The upper and lower sections are milled using a computer numeric control system. That's just a fancy way of saying that a giant robotic vertical end mill carves the entire gun out of a solid billet of aluminum. The result is a very lightweight rifle with nice tight tolerances. Now, calling this thing an AR-15 is actually not entirely accurate. The original AR uses a gas block, which channels energy from each round back into the bolt assembly to cycle the action. The Resolute, on the other hand, uses a radial delayed blowback system. Without getting too deep into the engineering, this essentially means that there is no gas block. Instead, the bolt is forced to rotate before it will cycle. This rotation process subtracts energy from the recoil and reduces chamber pressure, allowing the rifle to shoot softer. And trust me, the rifle is very easy to shoot. It snaps through 9mm rounds with only a fraction of the recoil one might expect. Before you know it, your sights are right back on target, mostly because they never left the target in the first place. This means the only problems you are going to face out on the range are figuring out how to keep the smile muscles in your face from cramping up, followed by figuring out where all of your ammo went. So, one of the many benefits to having a full-size rifle comes down to simple physics. This gun has a lot of mass, and when we compare that to the tiny little, moderately powerful 9mm cartridge, there's actually very little that this round can do to push this gun around. As a result, we have an extremely low recoil impulse. When you are looking through the sights of this thing and sending bullets downrange as fast as the trigger can go, the red dot literally never leaves the steel plate. It's almost too easy. Okay, I know I just said the rifle has a lot of mass, but that does not mean that the Resolute is heavy or cumbersome. In fact, it's just the opposite. It's quite nimble actually, and I personally find this carbine to be very easy to handle. It would definitely be an ideal choice for women or even younger individuals who are looking to move up from the .22 caliber and into a soft shooting 9mm carbine for the range. And now, like always, we need to talk price. At the time of this recording, the CMMG is hovering right in the middle of the road when it comes to pistol caliber carbines. There are, of course, a lot more names we could throw up on the board here, but it seems to me that the sweet spot for a good, well-rounded PCC tends to be coming in at around $2,000 these days. This is certainly not chump change, and as pretty much everything in life continues to become more and more expensive, choosing the right rifle can be a very important decision. So let's take a minute to talk barrel length. Shorter barrels offer lower muzzle velocity, and longer barrels offer higher muzzle velocity. Essentially what this means is the longer your barrel, the faster your bullet. Now this equation does come with a caveat. When we look at 9mm, ballistic testing has determined that the ideal barrel length for max velocity for this caliber is in the 9 to 10 inch range. Anything longer, such as a full-size 16-inch barrel, does not really afford any additional benefits. So, why the long barrel? Well, without trending too deeply into the festering bog of politics, full-length barrels tend to endure less scrutiny when it comes to regulations from the ATF. A 10-inch barrel is considered a short-barreled rifle, which is going to cost you a $200 tax stamp, unless you replace the buttstock with a pistol brace, and then the whole thing becomes a pistol, except for when the pistol brace spontaneously becomes illegal for no apparent reason and has to be removed, only later to be decriminalized, so you can pull the brace out of hiding and reinstall it. And I guess, at the end of the day, everything comes out okay, until of course the next set of bureaucrats come along and mess the whole thing up again. In any regard, all the while, the full-length 16-inch barrel has kind of managed to stay out of the political quagmire. So you have a slightly longer gun, but it's not getting wrapped up in all the legal issues that have been spraying into the air like manure through a giant ATF wood chipper. And to be honest, this is why I went with the 16-inch barrel. And so, ironically enough, the larger the rifle, the smaller the drama. Well, we have certainly been heaping praise upon this PCC since the very beginning. And yes, it is a very nice piece of hardware. But does it have any drawbacks? This is kind of a complicated question, and before we can come up with an answer, we need to provide a little context. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the CMMG Resolute comes from a very large family, and this 9mm carbine has a lot of cousins that are chambered for different rounds. As a result, they all tend to share some of the same manufacturing DNA. This is especially apparent when we examine the ejection port. Even though this rifle fires a 9mm cartridge, it kind of looks like it was made for something a little bit longer, say maybe a 5.56 or a 7.62. So, when the ejection port is clearly made for a longer cartridge, does this mean we have lots of extra space to fling these short little 9mm casings away from the rifle? Or does this mean we have lots of extra space to log jam these short little 9mm casings back into the guts of the gun? Sadly, I'm afraid we might be looking at the log jam situation. I have definitely had some failures to extract, which have resulted in a traffic jam of empty casings lodging themselves deep into the 5.56 size crevasse. Clearly, the 9mm variant is not purpose-built for the 9mm cartridge, but rather has to share DNA design specs with all of its larger cousins. Granted, this jamming problem is somewhat rare, but it does happen. Thankfully, this problem has certainly not escaped the boys at CMMG, because they have recently released a new Resolute series featuring the Fixed Ejector, or FE. When we look up close, it is quite obvious that the new ejection port is now designed specifically for the 9mm cartridge. Kinda wish I'd got my hands on one of these new models, if I'm being honest, but it's not the end of the world. All right, let's take a minute to talk reloads. Now, the Resolute is definitely set up 100% for right-handed shooters. This is not taking lefties into account at all, which I find to be a little bit disappointing. However, it's not the end of the world because, left-handed shooters typically have to adapt to things. We'll do a couple little reloading demos here to show you basically what's up. Essentially, you have fundamentally AR-15 controls. This safety selector actually does occur on both sides of the rifle, so it's on the right and the left. That's ambidextrous if you want to call it that. But there is no mag release on this side at all. The only way that we're getting to the magazine release is over here on the right side of the rifle. So again, as a lefty, you're going to be accessing this with your thumb, which is not the end of the world. Let's do a quick reload and we'll see how this looks. Okay, so we're empty. So as a lefty, first thing we do, come over here, hit that button. I actually found when I was trying to grab the mag, for show, I found that when I was trying to grab the magazine and help it out, it was getting stuck a little bit. This actually has a very positive eject. So if you just hit that button, mag goes right out, and that's the fastest way to kind of clear it out of the rifle, which is pretty good. So our next one comes up, seat that in there, and now I have no charging handle whatsoever on this side of the gun. So I have to do one of two things. I'm either coming back here for the charging handle, and basically it's in no man's land right now because the bolt is back. If I pull it all the way back, I can get that into battery. Or if we come over to this side, I actually have to break my grip in order to push that charging button. I cannot get that button to go with my hand on the grip. If you have enormous gorilla hands, you can probably pull that off. But as for me, I literally have to come all the way off that grip to hit the charging handle and put the next round into the chamber. Okay, so we're empty again. Again, no mag release on this side. It would be nice to have some type of a magazine release on this side, and it would be nice to have it on both sides, honestly. But at this point, again, we're gonna roll back over, check to see that we're empty. Back on this side, we have our positive release. This go around, we'll go ahead and hit one with the charging handle. And for the most part, it works. It's an extra step. It's a little bit of a manual process, but if you're shooting left-handed, you just have to adapt, and that's how it is. Still, an absolutely awesome rifle. It is a lot of fun to shoot. It's just flat as a laser beam. Super cool. Now, if you are a left-handed shooter, I do not recommend this gun. It is simply not made for us. It is made for the 99% of shooters out there who are right-handed, and this price tag is simply too much to spend for something that does not take the left-handed shooter into account. If you are a lefty, then the best PCC on the market, hands down, is the SIG MPX. This is easily one of the greatest rifle designs of all time, with a full spectrum of controls on both sides of the gun. If you're interested in learning more, be sure to check out our full review on the MPX after you finish up here. Back to the CMMG Resolute. In conclusion, this is an all-around great little PCC for training on the range. If you are looking to improve your skills in the AR-15 platform without going totally broke on 5.56 ammo, this rifle is certainly an excellent 9mm alternative. It is, without a doubt, a very high quality piece of hardware. It has an all-metal construction. Nothing about it feels cheap because it was clearly made with a lot of pride and precision. This is true of a great many PCCs these days, as gun manufacturers go head-to-head in a battle to build great guns that keep their customers happy. And if happiness is what you are looking for on the range, it can certainly be found behind the sights of the CMMG Resolute. All right, friends, as always, thank you so much for joining us. I certainly hope that you had fun on our little Resolute adventure. Now, if you have any cool CMMG stories that you would like to share, please be sure to drop them in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Also, be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. We have a lot of cool new stuff coming up, and I don't want you to miss out. That's gonna do it for today's show. Be safe on the range. We'll see you next time.